After 7 tragic losses, King Shantanu's heart was left fractured. 7 times he had watched his queen Ganga cradle their child, only to release the infant into the river's embrace. But this time, as he looked upon his 8th child in her arms, something inside him snapped. The ache in his heart could no longer be contained. He stepped forward, his voice trembling with both pain and desperation. He asked her to stop. Stop this madness. Why must you do this? His words were laced with the weight of unspoken vows, a plea to end the silent suffering. Ganga turned to him, her eyes a mix of sorrow and understanding. Her voice was gentle but resolute, carrying the weight of unspoken truths. As she said, "You have broken the condition, my king. It is time for me to leave. But you owe an explanation." And then Ganga began to speak, her words a journey into an ancient memory. She spoke of a time when 8 radiant beings, the Vasus, roamed freely in the heavens. These beings, unburdened by mortal toil, embodied the elements of nature itself, each a living emblem of purity, strength, and ageless grace. Among them, one stood apart, named Prabhasa, restless and curious. On a fateful day, the Vasus descended from their celestial realms and wandered into the ashram of sage Vasistha. In this sacred place, they encountered Nandini, a cow unlike any other, a creature of divine gifts, her essence brimming with the power of the gods themselves. Nandini was no ordinary being. Her presence alone brought peace, prosperity, and fulfillment to those around her. But Prabhasa's wife, enchanted by Nandini's beauty, felt a yearning arise within her. She turned to Prabhasa and whispered, "I want that cow." Her desire ignited a spark in Prabhasa, a pride that overshadowed caution and respect. The Vasus, guided by Prabhasa, plotted to take Nandini. Some of them hesitated, sensing the sacrilege of stealing from a sage so revered. But Prabhasa dismissed their caution. "Cowards always find excuses," he scoffed, goaded by his wife's words. And so, swayed by pride and impulse, they took Nandini and fled the ashram, unaware of the consequence that awaited them. The sage's wrath was swift and absolute. Vasistha, a master of cosmic wisdom, saw through their act and invoked his curse upon the Vasus. He proclaimed, "For your betrayal, you shall lose your celestial forms. No longer will you roam free. Instead, you shall be bound to mortal lives to suffer the toil and sorrow of earthly existence. You will be born as humans, your wings of freedom clipped, condemned to walk the soil as fragile beings, bound by life and death." As the weight of the curse descended upon them, the Vasus were struck by an overwhelming grief. They fell to their knees for forgiveness, pleading with the sage Vasistha to reconsider. But Vasistha explained that the curse could not be undone. It was now woven into the very threads of their fate. However, he offered them a glimmer of hope. They could seek out Ganga, the river goddess, who was herself fated to descend to the mortal realm. Only she could grant them the release they sought, sparing them the full burden of human. Filled with remorse, the Vasus fell at Ganga's feet, their celestial forms now dimmed by the weight of their guilt. Their voices, once resonant with pride, had softened to a tremor as they implored the goddess to grant them sanctuary within her womb. Each word they spoke was heavy with the yearning to escape the mortal suffering that awaited them. They asked not for freedom but for a mercy only she could offer, to be born into brief lives on earth, freed quickly from the burdens of human toil. They humbly placed their fates in her hands, pleading that her boundless compassion might bring them solace and release from the curse. Moved by their plea, Ganga agreed, understanding both the weight of their sorrow and her own fate. She promised to bear them as her children, to grant them the mercy of a fleeting mortal life. Each birth, each passage into the river was a release, a fulfillment of her promise to end their suffering. She told Shantanu, 7 of them have already been freed, but you, my king, have stopped me from granting peace to the 8th. This 8th child, the instigator of the theft, may be bound to a longer fate. He will remain upon this earth, a mortal among mortals. But fear not, I shall rise him with the wisdom and strength befitting a king. When he is ready, I will return him to you, a son worthy of your legacy. And with those final words, Ganga took the child and vanished into the river's depths, leaving Shantanu alone in his sorrow.